Alright, forgive the title on this. It does say 9 point whatever graph quads and properties, although this is 9.1, which is quadratic functions. Today we're going to learn necessary steps using graphing a quadratic function. The lesson is also going to show us some application things that we can do for the graph. The graph of a quadratic function is called a parabola. Again, make sure you write that down. You're going to hear that word more than anything else. And the essential question is, why must I memorize a formula to find the most important value of x? Well, with a line, 2 points make that line, but with a parabola, there are a whole bunch of points that you can choose from. And if you accidentally pick just those two or these and you don't find the key x, then you don't know where you're going. You need to find this value, because that is the turning point of the parabola, which will tell you more about what's going on. So again, if you're not able to find a key x, then you're not going to be able to graph it, because you won't know where the true point is. And remember that there are millions of points out there, even decimals and fractions, that you won't be able to do. The formula that you use is, and again, write this down for yourself, x equals negative b over 2a. I suggest you put the negative on top, not in front, because negative b pretty much just means opposite of b. And that is the most common error, is that forgetting that negative b means opposite of b. Most people who find the key x will tell me that the answer is 6, and then I will tell them, no, the answer is negative 6 because you messed up on your negative. And so usually that forgetting that negative messes up a lot of people. So put that in your mind right now, so you can try to make sure you focus on doing it the right way, and you'll be good. Once you identify the key x, you put it into the center of a 5-point chart with adjacent values. Remember, adjacent means next to. So if 3 is your key x, you're just going to surround it with the numbers that are next to 3. After plotting those values, you're going to see your parabola, and that'll do it. So if you were asked to graph the function y equals x squared minus 4x plus 1, first off, we don't know what x to use, and so we do our x equals negative b over 2a. And again, negative b means take b. In this case, notice that a is 1, b is negative 4, c is 1. But take your b and switch it. So negative 4 over 2 times a, which is 1, which turns into 4 over 2, or 2. From there, 5-point chart with this number going in the center. The numbers next to 2 are 1 and 0, also 3 and 4. And then you go ahead and you type those numbers into your calculator and see what happens. So again, you go to your equation here, which is parentheses 0, and again I suggest you use that, parentheses squared minus 4 parentheses 0 plus 1 equals 1. And this is where the copy paste thing comes in. Again, if you don't know how to copy and paste, you might want to ask me about it, but then next time try to remember it, because I think I've shown you a few times. Negative 2 there, 2, negative 3. So looking at 3 here, get the answer of negative 2, and then looking at 4, you get the answer of 1. Now notice that when you look at the first and last, as well as the second and fourth, you get the same answer. If you don't get that pattern, now I didn't say force that pattern by copying everything, but if you don't get that pattern, that means you messed up on your numbers. But when we go to plot that, 0, 1 means go up 1. 1, negative 2 means over 1, down 2. 2, negative 3 means over 2, down 3. 3, negative 2 means over 3, down 2. And 4, 1 means over 4, up 1. And again, you should see the parabola, as I said, whenever you do that. Once you get that key x there, draw your best curve through that graph, and that is your parabola. That's all you have to do. Now pay attention to the fact that this represents, and you might want to put that there, that the middle point is your vertex. So your key x of 2 led you to your vertex, which is what you need to make sure you know whenever you're working with this stuff. B, graph the function here, y equals negative 2x squared plus 4. Again, in this case, it's good to identify a, b, and c. A is negative 2. Remember that b is attached to x and there is nothing there, so b is 0, and c is 4, which means that x equals negative b over 2a leads to negative 0 over 2a. I'm sorry, 2 times negative 2 which of course is 0 over negative 4 or 0. Typically when b is 0, the key is going to be 0, so kind of keep that in mind. But other than that, when you go through this, 5 points with 0 being here, and again surround 0 with its numbers that surround it or that are next to it, and then go through. So negative 2 parentheses negative 2 squared plus 4 is negative 4. Turn that to a negative 1, you get 2. Turn that to a 0, and what we're going to do is we're going to delete the negative and then put a 0 in its place, which gives me another 4, or a 4, sorry. Turn my 0 into a 1. That gives me a 2, which is good because it means that it should be the matching pattern. And once you have one match, I mean, you can kind of assume what's going to go on, but it is always good to be safe. And again, notice that matches and that matches. If you can't draw that pattern after you found your points, then you didn't find the right points. Negative 2, negative 4 means back 2, down 4. Negative 1, 2 means back 1, up 2. 0, 4 means up 4. 1, 2 means over 1, up 2. And 2, negative 4 means over 2, down 4. And so you graph this here. What I notice about this graph is that it's more narrow than the graph I had before, but if you look at it, it makes sense based off what we learned last section, which is this 2, absolute value of 2, is bigger than the absolute value of 1. So yes, that should be more narrow than that graph up there, and that's kind of like what we want to talk about there, or what you need to know about it. But again, that is graphing your parabola. Make sure you do your graphs on paper whenever you need to, or whenever you do your 5-point chart if it's something possible. Make sure you do at least a couple graphs on your paper, because otherwise you won't remember how to do it when it counts on your quiz next week. What's the vertex of the parabola with the equation? Again, here we're looking for just the vertex. Remember that the vertex comes from your key x. And so that means that we have to do our a equals, b equals, and c equals, which is negative 6, negative 60, and 11. X is negative b over 2a, which is negative 60 over 2 times negative 6, which is positive 60 over negative 12, or when you divide that, negative 5. That is not my vertex, that is my key x. Remember that the vertex is a point, and so you have to actually take your negative 5 and plug it in. Gives me 161. So so we go to negative 5, 161. Just had to make sure I typed it in right, but I'm pretty sure I did. So yes, that would be your vertex. Again, whatever value you get for x, plug it in back, get your value for y. That gives you the 2 points you need for your vertex. Again, remember that your vertex comes from your key x, but it is a point. Another question you'll see today and on your test is going to ask for the minimum value. Well, to find the minimum value, that still comes from the key x, which goes back to our essential question. It's just not x, because the minimum value is actually how low it goes, which is a y value. So what you have to do again is your a, b, c, which is 3, negative 96, negative 15. X is negative b over 2a, which is negative 96 over 2 times 3, which is 96 over 6, or 16, I believe. Yeah. And again, that is my key x. That has nothing to do with the minimum. The minimum value on your graph, for example, is how low does this go, which is a y value. This minimum would be y equals negative 3. And so we have to now take that 16, because it happens at the vertex, and plug it in. So 3 times 16 squared minus 96 times 16 minus 15 equals negative 783. And that is your minimum. Now the part where you have to study, which is why I said this is going to be a tough chapter for some of you, mainly because of work ethic, is that you have to practice, because you have to know that vertex answers, I plug in 5, I get 161, it turns to negative 5,161. Minimum is find your key x, plug it in, and give me just the y answer. I don't need the actual point. The minimum is a value on there. E, the path of an object is given by this function where x is the horizontal distance in feet, y is the height in feet. What is the maximum height of the object? Again, you see maximum, that's similar to minimum, which means we must do our A, B, C, in which A is negative 0.3, B is 3.6, and C is 4. We then do our x equals negative b over 2a. Why would you need to memorize that formula? Because it's used in every single problem we did today. Negative 3.6 over 2 times negative 0.3, which is negative 3.6 over negative 0.6, which, if you ignore the decimals, is 36 divided by 6, or 6. That is not the maximum. Remember that the maximum is not the key x, it is the number that goes with y. So, because y is the height, we need to plug that back in. So negative 0.3 times 6 squared plus 3.6 times 6 plus 4 equals 14.8 feet. So again, go ahead and go to your Math Excel, try out your work. Don't worry about the glitches that were in your homework yesterday. I will be fixing that probably today whenever I get the chance. If not, by the time your grades go in, I will be fixing that. But go to Math Excel, get your questions answered, work on your stuff, and again, remember that this is the fourth quarter work, so if you were in trouble for the third, you might want to make sure you fix your habits. Good luck.